for fast, cheap, and reliable Madden 21 Ultimate Team coins. Make sure you guys go check out my sponsor, Easy Mutt. Use code VENOM at checkout for 5% off. Yo, what's up, you guys? On fire here, back with another video, and today we're going to be bringing you guys another Madden 21 defense. This one's going to be out of the 3-3-5 wide formation again. You guys showed a lot of love on the other one that I did, so I'm going to bring you guys another kind of unique play, unique setup. Well, it remains or it keeps some of those meta things that makes the formation so great, or some of those setups. So we're going to be running a cover 3 shell style of defense, but it is going to be out of a unique play where you can actually use a new guy. So we're going to be running some different type of adjustments from that standpoint. First thing you're going to go ahead and do is adjust your coaching adjustments. You can set auto flip on, curl flats at 20, flats at 5 as usual for these cover 3 shells. Again, 3-3-5 wide. We're going to be in the 4-6 defensive playbook, or any playbook with this formation. The actual play we're going to run is going to be in the middle there. It's going to be 3 Sam strong safety blitz. It's a pretty unique play, but it can actually be pretty good. And of course, I'll show you guys my favorite adjustments to make it work. Now we're going to be audibling from 3-3-5 to 3-3-5 wide. And you're actually going to be using the safeties. So I'm going to be using Justin Simmons here, but in game, depending on what side of the field they come out in, you will be using usually either your free or your strong safety. Of course, you can get safeties at linebacker also, which will help out for your pass coverage. But yeah, I do highly recommend that. Of course, just set it up in X and then you will be good to go. Let's hop straight into it. Anyways, here we are out on the field and just taking a look at our play art. We're going to be in this 3-3-5. Again, you press X, D-pad to the left. That's going to allow you to audible. And then I can go ahead, press X again. I like it in my X spot. But again, it doesn't really matter. You can kind of put it wherever. So I'm just going to go ahead, press it. You see what happens when I press it. Usually what happens is this guy usually will pull down. Now, the reason he didn't is because you noticed when I actually started it off, I was kind of clicked onto him. So that's what you don't want to do. But before every play, you kind of want to be on this guy. But it doesn't really matter because we can move this guy around wherever we want. So it's not that big of a deal, but usually he'll just come over here. Again, it doesn't matter. You can start your user off in the middle of the field. Does not make any difference to your actual defense. So you're going to audible. The next thing you're going to do is press your defensive backs. Of course, we have our nickel back on that right-hand side, which is what we want. So usually your user is going to be to the opposite side of the strong side, usually the weak side in this case. So taking a look at our player, we have a couple of interesting things. We have an extra blitzer off this left-hand side, which we'll put in a zone. Then we have 3 down rushers. We have a 3 receiver hook on that outside linebacker. And then, of course, I have my seam flat, which will turn into a curl flat there with the inside backer. So what I'm going to do first thing is I'm going to go ahead and throw this X linebacker in a hard flat. That's what we're going to do first, just to make sure we get the double flat on that left-hand side. Then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to shift my defensive line to that strong side of the field. So I'm going to shift to the right. And I'm going to throw that defensive end who's on that right-hand side in a hard flat as well. So we're going to put Von Miller here in a hard flat. And then the last thing I'm going to do is shade over the top. So this is what your first setup should look like. Again, it's pretty solid. It can definitely confuse your opponent, especially if I were to just start out here. So usually what I'll do is I'll put my user right here. Unless I know I have to user something quick on the right side, I'll put my user here. The reason I do that is just simply because it allows me to confuse my opponent. You might think this is a standard setup, and then when he snaps the ball, he notices that I'm using the safety. He might get confused. He might start looking deep when in reality nothing's really open. Another part I like about the defense is having this outside backer here on a bluff blitz zone. Rather than a defensive end, he can cover more ground because he is a safety, and even if he was a linebacker, he would be a lot more agile in that regard. So we'll just run a couple of basic plays. We'll start out with like a double post type of play. You'll see how everything's going to be covered pretty well there. Of course, certain plays will beat it a little bit better. Certain routes beat the 3 receiver hook a little bit better. But again, it's just kind of a simple 2-man rush setup. Of course, I will show a 3-man rush setup as well, just for those of you that don't like to rush just those 2 guys. But yeah, overall, it is a pretty simple setup, I think. It's not a whole lot of adjustments. It's really only those 2-3 main adjustments, and then of course basic things like pressing and shading over the top, which you'll do in any defense. So again, you can just audible to this 3 Sam strong safety blitz. This time you see, as long as I don't move him, even if I'm clicked on him but I don't move, he will go into his spot. So if you don't move the left stick, he'll go here, and this is normally the spot that he goes in, which is not bad. There's good defenses like out of big nickel over G that have this style of things that I've talked about in the past. We're just kind of running a new formation with it. So again, I audible, I'm going to press, I'm going to shift to the right, I'm going to throw X in a hard flat, and I'm going to throw A in a hard flat and shade over the top. So it's pretty simple. You press, put your 2 zones, shade over the top, and you are good to go. You should be able to get it off pretty quickly, even if you're not that good with your adjustments. As far as extra things you can go ahead and add, what I would do is maybe deep half B. I can do something like that, just basic stuff, and I definitely recommend deep halving B usually, especially when I'm adjusting my zone drops, because I don't need my outside third to kind of cheat over on a corner out or anything like that. So we'll run a new play, go with something like Z spot, and you'll see maybe that corner out gets open a little bit because my curl flats are at 20 yards, which of course I always say this, you can adjust your curl flats to either 20, 25, and even potentially 30, depending on what your opponent is doing. So here we're going to defend. You see X defended well, the corner out defended pretty well, and that was of course deep half, so my cornerback's a little bit out of position, but coverage for the most part pretty solid there. And really the main reason that you do go with something like this, what I think, is because of this 3 receiver hook from the outside linebacker. He just covers a lot of ground. You see right there, he kind of defends any quick reads, and he actually ends up following the streak all the way up the field, which no other zone will do. So he can actually defend seam routes very, very well. They're not super popular in this game, but depending on the formation, they can cover a lot more ground. And you see, of course, everything else is defended pretty well. Just make sure you get an athletic defensive guy, defensive end. The one small problem that I would have with this defense potentially is, and again, it depends on the formation, but you'll have a defensive lineman in hard flat in coverage on this bunch side. At this point in the game, you can get like Montez Sweats at the end in Ultimate Team, so that's not really an issue. Maybe in regs, it's a smaller issue, but you see the coverage still pretty well. Again, also another point I had is that my curl flat from the middle backer, I would expect some of you to be potentially concerned with that. I'm not really too concerned with that, especially since he's going to the solo wide receiver side. So even like a corner route or anything that could get open is either going to be covered by the outside third, or it's actually going to be covered by my curl flat. So not really an issue there. Anyways, I'll show that first setup one more time, then I might hop into some other stuff. Of course, 3-3-5 wide, this play is going to be pretty good against the run as well. Just like any kind of a basic run, you set just decent guys in the box. And also the reason it's going to be a little bit better against the run, potentially, one of the biggest reasons would be that you're using the safety and that I can actually just add an extra guy. So instead of using the linebacker, having the safety be back in coverage, I use the safety. That gives me an extra guy. You see the run fits are pretty solid from that standpoint. So again, not terrible with the run fit. I might just run the ball. Not sure why this guy came in the box, but if it did, it's not the worst thing in the world. Now I don't have any runs set up, but I'll just audible to something like a bunch halfback strong. This is what I do when I run bunch offset. I would audible maybe if I see him do this. Potentially I would go with like either spread my defensive line so that my hard flat's still on the right side, but I get those guys in a little bit better position. But you see pretty well, that was a good cut, but of course I did kind of click off there. So traditionally it would defend things like base pretty well, or an inside zone and trips pretty well. You guys all know 3-3-5 wide against the run, pretty dang solid. So let's hop into some new potential setups for this defense, what you could do. I did mention that we could have a 3-man rush setup, and that's going to be pretty simple. You could probably guess what we're doing. We're just going to simply take away our 3 receiver hook. So I'm just going to put X in a hard flat. I'm going to go ahead and instead of putting our defensive lineman in a hard flat, I'm going to go ahead and put the linebacker or safety over there in a hard flat. So pretty simple. Again, the defense is still pretty solid. Of course, it's not as good as far as defending quick reads, and this one I would probably be a little bit more reluctant to just stay up here and bluff blitz because I don't have anything defending in the middle of the field, any quick read, any hot read. So I might cheat over a little bit, stand right here, which kind of gives it away, but he might still be expecting the same things. You don't know what he's going to do really. But yeah, this would not be the worst thing in the world. You see, you can kind of defend things pretty well. Of course, 3-man rush, you're going to get a little bit more pressure, although that wasn't even the case right there. But yeah, I don't know. Some people don't like going with the 2-man rushes. I don't really have a problem with it because everybody runs 2-man rush against me. I don't have a problem going with 2-man rush, but maybe if you had lower overall defensive linemen, if you were playing regs and you had a bad defensive line, bad pass rush, that you might want to just send the 3 people because 2-man rush might not be the move. So I'll show that setup again. You're going to press, set everything up the same. So I can still give them the exact same look. I'm just going to put A in a hard flat, put X in a hard flat. This actually does make the adjustments potentially a little bit more simple for you guys. The reason for that is that you're just putting 2 linebackers in hard flats instead of having to put one of the defensive linemen. In this case, also, I can maybe slant outside. If I don't want to shift to the right, which I don't have to, of course, I can go ahead, spread my defensive line. I could pinch them. I can contain. So it gives me a little bit more freedom as far as keeping the quarterback in the pocket or to actually defending any kind of a quarterback threat. I could always spy one, which we'll show next. But yeah, overall, just kind of simple stuff. Again, you're going to have to be on point with your user, but you see maybe a little bit of a quicker shed, kind of like we got right there. So anyways, we'll hop into just one more setup here. I've already done the audible, and one more thing you can do. Well, you have an extra guy. I have an extra 3 receiver hook. What I can do, maybe if I wanted to, is I can still put Von Miller in the hard flat, but I can actually man up A on RB. So I can man up A on either B or RB. It depends on which one you want. Again, I would probably go B. I usually like to man up B. He's usually the one that's going to be on either a post route, but if I notice him motioning over RB a lot, which some people do, really it does kind of depend on the setup. But let's say that we're setting up like a mesh post type look. So I'll just set up just kind of a basic mesh post. Something kind of like this, although this isn't even mesh post. So they're motioning that player over. If I notice him kind of doing that a lot, and you notice how the middle backer does move over, one of the differences I could do is I would just man up A on RB, which it does actually allow me to cross man there. Not sure if you can do that in online play, but this would be an adjustment that I would be pretty keen on doing. And that would be instead of the 3 receiver hook. So I still have my double Mabel. I have an extra man coverage guy. So this would just be, again, kind of a next level adjustment depending on what you are expecting to see. But you see how that slant's going to be cross-manned and he's going to be absolutely bagged despite us getting moss. So that's one of my favorite adjustments to do. Again, just showing that off. What you're going to do is press. You're still going to shift. You're still going to put A in a hard flat, X in a hard flat, shade over the top, all that jazz. But you're just going to go ahead and man up A on RB. So if they inevitably went with a setup like this, you would be pretty much covered well. Again, they can motion him out. And that middle backer getting motioned out is perfectly fine because he is on that. But you see, I could take B with my user. We end up lurking over there. We end up making the play and getting the interception. Of course, I could always man him up on that B receiver, which is another thing I do. If I notice someone not really motioning that guy out with a bunch, then another thing that bunch players do is they maybe motion B out on like a post route. That's something that I'll see. So if they're running something kind of like this is a setup you could potentially see online. So they'll motion this post out a step, they'll snap it. Now I have them manned up, and now I have a little bit better coverage on that, especially with an acrobat in that spot to where I can lurk over on the hitch, although that was bad usering. But that's pretty much going to do for the video. If you guys did enjoy, make sure you go ahead, smack a like on the video, subscribe to the channel for more content, follow me on Twitter, link will be down below in the description, and peace. I'm out of here.